Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. I'm Glazer of the Snap Judgments podcast, and today we're going to talk about two really cool High Evolutionary decks. Shuri, along with High Evolutionary, as a way to take advantage of the power those cards get. That one's also going to have a card that everyone got for free, Kitty Pryde, in it. We're also going to be taking a look at a really cool High Evolutionary Cerebro 4 deck. Hopefully, you're ready for that. This Saturday night, though, before we get there, Jungcat finished second place in a major tournament, the Snap Battle Arena tournament, with this High Evolutionary lockdown. Yesterday morning, 8:30 in the morning, I told you this is a deck to play. This is a ladder deck supreme. This should absolutely dominate on ladder. Well, the meta caught up again. Specimen released a video. A bunch of major creators with tens of thousands of followers are now releasing videos saying this is one of the decks to play if you want to climb rank. This is actually the deck I suggest if you want to hit Infinite right now. I'm going to do that video later this week where I give you the decks that you should be playing if you want to hit Infinite right before the end of the season. But this is number one with a bullet. I made this video Saturday and didn't release it till Monday. That's my bad. Next time, I'm going to make sure to get you that video by Sunday morning so you have all the time in the world to take advantage of this before the larger creators get there. That's why you follow here. That's why you sub here. I will find you the best decks that no one else is talking about before they get there. In addition, we have a huge giveaway. Been talking about it for weeks. It's over on our Twitter. Check the Twitter link at the top of the description to this video if you want to see about that. You can win one of 5 season passes. Go get yourself a Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider season pass. The deck we're talking about today, though, is this deck. It is Shuri Evolved. I have no idea where this deck came from. A viewer in yesterday's video was like, hey, I've been getting my butt kicked by a Shuri High Evolutionary deck that runs Kitty Pryde. So I started researching, and on Untapped, I found the version that does best. I've asked around. No one knows exactly where this deck came from. It's similar to a deck several different creators have made, but this version, no one is quite sure who originated it. If you happen to know, let me know in the comments below. This deck plays like the classic Dracula dump deck early in the game, you're playing a lot of low-cost cards and just trying to build up power and location so that your opponent can't be sure where you're contesting. One lane will have Nebula, one lane will have Sunspot, one lane will likely have like an Angela with a kitty bouncing back. You can also choose to do this in 2 lanes if you're willing to, and just say, come get as big as I can in these 2 lanes. This is a marvelous answer for a lot of the lockdown decks because they're going to struggle with the growing nature of Angela Sunspot. As Kitty bounces, she gets stronger and stronger. As you're doing this with these 1-drops, you're making Sunspot and using Misty to float power. Eventually on turn 4 or turn 5, you can play Shuri. Shuri with Kitty Pryde makes her like a 110, 1-8, 112 in that general area, depending on how much you've been playing her, Misty Knight buffs, etc. And at that point, she is a game ender. You can play whatever you want on 5 at that point, and then go Kitty Pryde and Taskmaster for a 24 power final turn just fine. You could also conceivably play some more small cards on 4, and then do Shuri into Kitty directly on. That, with magic in the deck, is not the direct goal of what you want to do on turn 5. Your idea here is to, well, you can do like 6 things with magic. But one of the things you can do with magic is you can play magic past turn 6, ideally with Sunspot on board, and then you have full mana for She-Hulk and Hulk. It's amazing, right? It's super powerful. That is exactly, you also will have 1 energy left over that way to play that Kitty Pryde back down. So turn 7 would be Hulk, She-Hulk, Kitty Pryde. You could also conceivably float that energy for Sunspot or Misty, as the case may be. You can play She-Hulk and Taskmaster alone. You can play, if you play Shuri, On 4, float 5, you can always do the She-Hulk and Taskmaster turn 6. You can play Magic on 5, and then just play Hulk on 6, and then Taskmaster Hulk on 7. That also leaves you 2 extra mono. 1 for a float for Sunspot / Misty, 1 often for Kitty Pryde. Wasp is just a little bit of extra to get over the top when your opponent thinks they're safe in a location. And High Evolutionary is obviously a must-have in this deck. This deck is crazy small. Crazy small. This deck is crazy strong. I've been playing it. I had Fazer Snaps playing it over on Twitch, and he's kicking butt with it. It has a lot of power. The real power of this deck is that it's such a good meta user. You go so big that the lane lockdown often struggles to beat you. The Kitty bounce decks, you are one of the few decks in the meta that can just straight up match their power. Thanks, Shuri. And finally, the Patriot decks the Patriot decks that are running like wave. Great, they wave you and you magic, and they wasted a wave. They wave you, and you just get a Hulk that can then soak. All of these plays are completely fine. You end up with so much power that everything in the meta is answered. I strongly urge you to try out this deck. I think the previous deck, the Lockjaw deck, is a little better, just because it's so hard to play around a Lockjaw, and it doesn't feel like it suffers from missing the first 2 turns. The podcast should be out soon. You'll hear Lambie say that he thinks it's easy to beat that Lockjaw deck because you can snap into it early in tournaments, but on the ladder, opponents won't know that you're playing it, so you can get away with it. This deck, no one's snapping into you. They're going to think you're playing a bounce deck, though, right? They're not going to realize you're playing Shuri and dropping such huge power until later. So before you Shuri, make sure you're snapping. You can also snap right before Magic, although be careful if it's a lockdown deck and they have not yet played Storm. If you're planning on skipping that turn, you can be in trouble. So that's a much better line for that Hulk match. Hulk play. Bad locations are answered by Magic as an extra benefit to running the deck. I think that's basically everything. This deck is hugely powerful. Don't feel like you have to play Angela. If you get all 4 ones, very often Angela's like a turn 3, turn 4 play, because getting the ones out and going and synergizing with each other is so important. And then sometimes if you get all of that going, you don't end up needing Shuri. The She-Hulk is enough. There's so many different lines with this deck, and when you play it, you'll see just how strong it is. It's playing Kitty as one of the strongest cards in the game. Hulk is one of the strongest cards in the game. Nebula is one of the strongest cards in the game. And then it says She-Hulk is one of the strongest cards in the game. And then it says, hey, by the way, we've also got Shuri back on top. So make sure you check this deck out. It's so good right now. Next deck we have is a Super Mario Link. I'm going to link his Twitter in the description to this video. He's playing a High Evolutionary Cerebro 4. All right. I don't usually like Cerebro, but this deck is too cool not to feature. The base. Oh, excuse me. That's not supposed to be here. My bad. Let me edit that. Let me edit that Korg out quickly for you guys. Korg should actually be. Sorry, I was going to highlight a Darkhawk deck for you today. I decided to save the Darkhawk deck for tomorrow, but Wowolos has a great Darkhawk deck. This is supposed to be a Rocket. Let's just type Rocket. Scroll down, hit Rocket, and the deck is updated. So when you check my decks, you will have an accurate build. If you're not sure how to get any of these decks, the easiest way, by the way, is every single day in the description, I post a link to all of my decks on SnapFan. All you have to do is click that link, and you'll see the name as it is on screen. You can copy the code, you can clone it and edit it, whatever you want. Okay. This deck basically wants to get a bunch of 4s out, right? Ideally, it's getting Rocket. It's going Rocket, Medusa, or Cloak, into Cyclops, into Crystal or Moon Girl, into Sarah. Then once you Sarah, you would really, really, really like to Cerebro and Mystique. But because you have Sarah out, they're both 2s. So at that point, you can play like a Luke Cage, a Cloak, a Crystal. You could even play, you would still have 2 mana to do with whatever you want. You can play, I guess you couldn't play Crystal, but you can play a Cerebro, Mystique, Cyclops. You can play Cerebro, Mystique, Cloak, and Medusa, or Luke Cage and Medusa, so on. It's a really cool way to get power on the board and go wide. Law as a 5/7 or 5/10 that puts 6 in another lane is like completely busted. You're probably not getting crazy use out of the Moon Girls doubling, but you know how it's really annoying to sometimes see Cerebro and not Mystique? Well, if you got Cerebro in hand and you Moon Girl, guess what? You've got a much safer way to pull off that combo. This deck is really, really cool. Cerebro is dangerous. It's always dangerous. I don't think it's ever going to be really T1 because there's so many ways to mess with it, like a location that doubles your power, and all of a sudden you're in all sorts of trouble, right? Or +5 power. However, this deck is super cool, and this is our fun tier deck of the day. I think it also happens to just be pretty good. So check it out, and check back tomorrow for another Snap Take. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making this one. See ya.